Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all. I'm Dr. Juhi Yasmin, Assistant Professor of Communicative English, Department of CSE, AI and ML, and Cybersecurity, Faculty of Engineering and Technology at Jain, deemed to be University. I'm here to welcome you all in today's Industry Connect session, which is on cybersecurity with special reference to vulnerability management. For this today we have with us an esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Nirmal Kumar. He is a cybersecurity professional with over 7 years of experience in IT and information security assurance and advisory service. Mr. Kumar has obtained his B.Tech from Kerala University in Electronics and Communication Engineering. He is experienced in vulnerability management services, which includes exceptions management and remediation support for various companies across insurance and IT industries. He has worked with information security compliance teams for ensuring continuous compliance of various endpoint security solutions. In addition, he has also worked with different tech giants to extend his support in the areas such as Qualys API, device remote management, SolarWinds network monitoring, and data visualization. So, on behalf of the entire Gene family, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you and like to thank you for taking out your precious hour to be spent with us. Our today's audience is students of B.Tech Cybersecurity, BCA CS students, as well as faculty members of the same department. Now it's over to you, sir. Please start the session.
Thanks a lot, Juhi, for giving a brief introduction. I would like to thank you and Jatin for giving me this opportunity to have a connect with campus, especially the new upcoming generation who would like to learn more into the
Thank you,
cybersecurity
sir.
and
It's
all.
a privilege to be, to have you here. Thanks a lot for
Yeah.
joining us. You can start the session, sir.
Yeah, sure. So let me present my screen. So I have made a brief PPT. It's not a broad one. So as you, it has a lot of information. It doesn't have a lot of information. It's just a brief thing about how vulnerability management effectively needs to be implemented across the organization. So let me present my screen. Uh, I can't. I mean, it is disabled for me. Can you just
Yeah, wait a minute, sir. I'm just making you the co-host so that you can. Yeah, sir, please try sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can see your screen, sir.
Okay, great. So, as Juhi said, she has already introduced me. So basically, I've been working with vulnerability management since 2016. Our different organization implementation, supporting the teams to fix the vulnerabilities, and also taking care of the legacy operating system and helping them in migration to the updated one. So these are the areas which I have basically worked on. So let me go to the slides one by slides. Just before going to what I would like to have a brief on, because most of us are students come with a term vulnerability management directly doesn't make any sense, because it might give you a glimpse, but it's not actually giving an idea of what exactly a vulnerability and vulnerability management means. So most of the people who comes to cybersecurity will have the gimmicks of thoughts which says, okay, hacking. Yeah, it's really hacking, but it's more or like we are in the defensive side of the system. Whatever we does is have some ethical values to protect the system which we work for, or if you are committed to do a bug bounty program, so you are helping the organization to secure their infrastructure along with their applications and their digital infrastructure. So it's more bound to know the attack patterns and also how to exploit these things. But you're just learning these kind of technologies just to support and to grow our digital infrastructure in a more secure and better way. Okay, so yeah, so vulnerability management, when it comes to vulnerability management, so let me give a brief about the IT assets and the different things before going to what is vulnerability management. So you've been working in an organization, you being in a college, you know that now it's not unlike the previous times. We will be all taking the notes and writing things, etc. So the dependence on the digital things is very less, unlike the previous times. Now it's like more into you're having your MacBook, and also your school college systems have been completely dependent on the digital infrastructure. Like you have a laptop, and inside your campuses you will be having your the network infrastructure, like the routers, which is the databases to keep your roles, the HR people, or your the mark sheets. Everything is digital, even your mm, assignments too. So when it comes to that, everything is connected to the internet, and everything has individual IT components ranging from network devices to databases to even for the mobile applications. So the IT team is already managing these things very effectively, but there should be someone who should take care of these IT security as a separate module. So that is where the vulnerability management comes into picture. So if it is a small organization or a small enterprise having a few systems, it's okay. The IT team themselves can look into this and just fix, apply the patches and all these things. So that's easier. But when it comes to a huge organization with like millions of assets, millions of laptops, thousands of servers, like 2500 to 3000 different web applications, which serves their customers as well as their internal purposes, like HR systems, their application development system, the pre-development systems, the post-development systems, and the customer-facing systems. Everything has different systems. So all these things needs to be effectively managed under vulnerability management. So that's where the vulnerability management is key player for such organizations. So when you say the vulnerability management, okay, we have a vulnerability management in place, okay, it's running. We cannot say it's running, it's there, we are protected. No, it's not like that. There are so many challenges which we face with on the way of vulnerability management. So you cannot simply go, okay, I am having tools and I'm going to implement vulnerability management. So it's the other team. So I'll run the reports. I'll make you. I mean, I'll find out the vulnerabilities for you. I'll do the risk. So that's all. It's the other team or the infrastructure team to fix it. So that doesn't make any sense. You are in a proactive defensive manner to take care of these vulnerabilities and to help them fixing those. So that's where I'm also giving you a brief of the successful approach. The last part is about the VM tools and products, which is a whole set of tools, market vendors, market leaders, which is already available, to the open source, couple of open source tools too. I'm just giving a brief on that, and I will give you a couple of very short instances of how to run these modules or these tools, just to find out the basic vulnerabilities and all. So it's not a complete thing, it's just a basic stuff which I am going to show you in VM tools and products. Okay, so just give, as I said, this is an overview. So organizations are feeling the real pain. So what causes the damage? As you know, that there would be different of vulnerabilities which is coming every day. And if you check each and every internet vendors, for example, Microsoft, Google, Microsoft has all sort of products which is coming up. So if you go to the Windows operating system, you will find there was an instance where we really went bad during 2017. That was WannaCry, which is a simple SMB port is getting exploited, and which led to the wide breach of data, including ransomware attacks. So such things, the 95% breaches target those non-vulnerabilities. So there will be a lot of vulnerabilities which is already in your system, like you're opening a certain port, you have a public website, and port 80 or port 445, which is an SMB port. The particular website is hosted in a mm, Windows server, and the 445 is open, and that does critically pose a threat to someone who is eavesdropping into your network, or someone who's listening to your network, who can easily connect without any authentication through 445 if you don't have put any kind of ACLs or access control list or an authentication mechanism. So that's how you have to identify what are vulnerabilities in your system. So the next one is, how do you prevent the damage? So you know that there's a risk associated with everything in the internet. So that's just a complicated multiplication factor of assets, vulnerabilities, and threats. So when you see an asset, okay, they have a vulnerabilities and the threats. Basically, the potentiality of those vulnerabilities getting exploited on the particular asset is what we call as a risk. So, for example, if you have a system hosted in your that means if you have a web application which is hosted in your server, which is publicly accessible, and the particular server is having an SQL injection vulnerability, which is not fixed. So, and that particular website has a lot of information, like you are having a lot of customer database where they interact with you, where they do business with you, and they have their credit card information stored in the website. In that case, that you're keeping this SQL injection vulnerability open means it increases the risk. That's where the risk comes into picture. So that is what you need to eliminate, and that's what vulnerability management aims to help the organizations to fix the non-vulnerabilities, hence making a safe the safe transition between, exchange between the customers and the vendors. So yeah. So how do you make the best security decisions? Focus on the right assets, right threats, and right measures. So that's something like a brief I would give is like, as I said, if you have an external website that needs to be fixed, yeah, that needs to be fixed. That's a priority. But you are having a laptop or something which is simply lying in your environment, but it is already inside the environment and it doesn't have any critical data on it. So when it comes to fixing the vulnerabilities or investing on fixing the vulnerabilities, if you're unnecessarily putting time and money on that asset, which doesn't bring any sort of real value between your customers and your business, then that's a waste of money. So that is where it is important that the right assets comes into picture. So that's one of the key points. So let's comes to what is vulnerability management. It is nothing but simply eliminating, mitigating, or tolerating vulnerabilities based upon the risk and the cost associated with fixing the vulnerability. So that's what I said. It's nothing. You just have to, if you have a system which has a vulnerability which cause a critical cost to your company or cost to your business by having a data breach or compromising your customers' data, or which could eventually lead to a lot of reputation damage. So that's where uh, these vulnerabilities can be very bad, can put you in a very bad situation. So eliminating those vulnerabilities, identifying the risk value, is what we calling it as vulnerability management. So you have seen a word called tolerate. So tolerate is, again, I would like to recall the thing which I said a couple of minutes back, that is an asset which doesn't pose a real critical value for your business, where you can really tolerate a couple of vulnerabilities and put it as an exception. So that's where tolerating vulnerabilities comes into picture. So all these processes together, we call it as vulnerability management. So at a high level, it is an intelligent confluence of assessment, analysis, and remediation. So assessment is basically, you have like an organization, you have like 10-20 assets. So you should have a repository that, okay, I have these many databases, I have these many Oracle instances running on my system, I have 10 network switches, I have an external vendor switch. So I keep couple of Cisco telepresence products. So there are so many things which you have in your system. So you're keeping an inventory. That is where this is the first level of assessment comes into picture. So if you doesn't know, like, okay, I bought a system and I kept it for there, but I didn't keep it as an inventory, I didn't track of it, then that is actually also risk, because if unattended and often assets of your organization will be naturally eliminated from the vulnerability management process. So that's where you, if you have a system which is vulnerability. So the next part is analysis, what to fix first. So as I said earlier, so you have a lot of vulnerabilities. So what should you fix first? So you have a SQL injection on your friend-end web application, your website, which you serves for your customer, or you will just apply a patch on a laptop which is used by one of your the clerk or a peon in your office. So that's where you have to literally compare. The first priority should always go to your customer serving website application SQL injection vulnerability. So the remediation is actually fixing the problem. So whether it is in your laptop or it is in your application, that is what we call as remediation. So these are the basic challenges when it comes from the assessment part. So that you have there are so many products which is available when it comes to the assessment. As I said, there are so many tools, open source tools. You might have heard of open source tools like Nmap or OpenVAS. There are a couple of small instances, but you cannot literally rely on a big organization and assets to scan using these components. So that there comes the traditional desktop scanners cannot handle large networks. Provide volume of useless checks, because they have a lot of signatures. They will check for each and minute, even for the small service. They will identify and they will give you the information. So it's how you decide on what to fix. So that's where an assessment challenge comes. It will give you a lot of data. Chopping up scans and distributing them is so if you say like 25,000, 35,000 network devices plus your laptops plus servers, then it's a challenge that you have to initiate scans on these 25,000 is not easy. That also you have to decide what to do, when to do, and how is it affecting business. Those things also you have to take into consideration. So garbage in, garbage out is nothing but the volume of superfluous data. There's a lot of data that you need to know how to analyze it. There you have to use your intelligence, like the data visualization techniques, the data science methodologies, whatever which you find is the best for your organization, you have to use that. Coverage at all OSA layers is inadequate. Um, as you know, there are 7 layers of, so you have to check on all, but still there's a challenge. You cannot go into each and every minute area. So that's also one challenge, and it's time consuming, resource intensive, and the problem is only on the half the batch. It's not going to an end. So these are the few challenges when it comes to assessment and analysis part. Again, I'm saying what to fix, if you should fix, when to fix. So it's not like, okay, there's a vulnerability there and okay, I'll do it like after 2 or 3 months. No, that doesn't make sense, because if there is a public exploit which is already available, then you are already putting yourself in risk. So vulnerabilities, threats, and assets. There, if there is no correlation, if there is a silos like three independent teams, for example, when I would like to just compare, give an analogy of your college itself. So if the principal team, the head of the department is working, and the students are there, so it's if they both are okay, the students are doing their job and your department is doing their job, so if there's no real interaction or feedback, what will happen? It's just uh, nothing useful or productive is coming out. Similar way, vulnerabilities, threats, and assets should go hand. And each and every team, if it is a threat intelligence team, should have a constant association with the vulnerability management team, and asset management team should have a constant connection with both vulnerability management, threat management team. So this is all should go a correlative approach to fix all these issues. So no way, it's like there is no way to prioritize what vulnerabilities should be or on what order you should do. So these are the challenges basically faced by each and every vulnerability management team. So now we have said about, okay, we have a hell lot of stuff, a lot of challenges, or there's a lot of um, things which you eventually has to fix, and that we discussed. But when it comes to remediation, again, That's where the real challenges comes, because the security resources are often more decentralized. There will be certain resources like Microsoft patching system will be with one team, and they may be using it for the certain purposes, but for the other hand they have to redistribute it from there to the another team. So it's more like decentralized, and you have to make a separate team to centralize all these decentralized resources to have an effective remediation plan. So the security organization often doesn't know the networks. So the security team may not be aware of what is there in the organization. So it's very important to have a better communication with the asset management team, the network team, the operations team, the software team. Every team should work and go on hand to make an effective remediation plan. So these are basic remediation challenges which every organization is going through. So yeah, so there I have just mentioned about the risks and challenges. This is an overview of how the vulnerability management life cycle is. I mean, what is our vulnerability management life cycle is. I'll just give you a short overview of all these 9 points. So the first one is policy. So policy is something very normalized word, or very common word that we see in every industry. So you should, before starting anything, you should write a document like these are the standard guidelines and procedure, and this is what we are going to do. So that is set. So the next thing is, the second part is identifying the assets. Okay, we have like 10,000 assets. Do we have an inventory? Do we have a DNS lookup? Do we have who owns what? So all these things are recorded in an inventory. Then prioritizing. That's what I have, as I said previously. So you should identify, okay, I have 10 to 20 servers which is completely exposed to public. So, okay, let me give you, you may have questions like what is public, what is private. The public and private networks are very key for every organization. So private network is something like, for example, there is an MNC is there. So that MNC have a lot of internal team who works close together to make a product, like a web application or a mobile application. So that will be happening in internal network, and that will be completely isolated with the external public internet. So you might have heard your IT colleagues saying that, okay, we cannot access certain websites, social media websites, etc. inside the organization, because they have put a logical knot to certain websites or data which is going in, which is going out and in from the organization. So that's where firewall and other defensive filtering practices comes into picture, which is completely isolate your internal network from the public internet. But as I said, it's like we cannot keep a website internal and you cannot do business with your customer. Of course, we should have an external facing IP addresses, and IT assets should be there. So that's where the public websites, for example, we are using Swiggy, Oyo, all these food delivery apps, then Amazon, the everything has a front end because we are communicating. So that is part which is public facing, and if that particular front end part or the public facing part is having a critical vulnerability, that is needs to be prioritized, and asset criticality of those assets. For example, the Amazon websites which we are searching, and that web assets or the framework, all these are kept over web database, because of course there will be database also which could be an SQL, Oracle, or anything. So that's all public facing. So that vulnerability, any vulnerabilities over those assets should be fixed prior to any other things. So then the vulnerabilities. So we are doing a scan and identifying an SQL injection vulnerability, or certain patch is not, Oracle patch is not updated if they're using Oracle server. SQL server is there and you are not validating the input. So it's posing another threat and risk. So that's where we do the scan, an external scan to identify determining the vulnerabilities on the assets. Then we have identified the vulnerabilities, and then next comes the threats. So threats is nothing like it's the exploitability factor of those vulnerabilities. So as you know, there are a lot of vulnerabilities there, but there are certain vulnerabilities which can be easily exploited. So for certain vulnerabilities, you may have to write your own code, but the script kiddies may find it difficult. So again, the attackers have been divided into different genres. Some are very highly skilled to exploit even very low critical vulnerabilities, but some are like very common group of attackers which you just leverage already available internet resources, the public exploits to get into or compromise the system. So if such vulnerabilities are there, like which is, we call it as low hanging fruits, which can be easily exploitable, so that threat is very higher. So we call, which is very, if particular vulnerability which is very easy to exploit, then the threat value is higher. So risk, then comes the risk. Risk is nothing but the combination of asset plus the vulnerability plus threat. If an asset which is an external facing, uh, which is a high criticality vulnerability is identified, then the threat, the chance of that particular vulnerability getting exploited is high. Then the risk is very high because all the three factors contributing to the risk is very high. Hence, that can be easily exploited. So that's where the risk value comes into picture. And when it comes to remediation, uh, we have to take the assets with high risk value. That is a priority we have to give, and we have to go and fix those vulnerabilities. Then the measuring comes. Yeah, we have done the fixing part clear. I mean, we have done the fixing part, but we should measure it, right? Okay, how far we done it? Where are we lagging behind? So such kinds of things we need to evaluate. And then comes the compliance, because it's just the policy compliance. Okay, we have written standards and procedures. Then we have to do an audit just to make sure that whatever said in the standards and guidelines is met or not met or partially met. So that's where the compliance percentage comes into percentage. So if you have like 10 to 25 controls, which you have defined for your industry, for different asset categorization, and if you have just met five controls and you haven't met other five controls, then your compliance percentage is 50. So that is the overall life cycle of vulnerability management. So just successful approach. Uh, we don't have anything like 100 percentage compliance, because it's an ideal case, which is not possible. But we would be at least nearing to the 100 percentage, at least to 95 to 98 percentage. That's what our achievement. So to get into that, what are the successful approaches? Prioritize the assets, identify the risk, remediate the vulnerabilities, measure. So this is a cycle. You have to do it like every week, every month. Then only you will be able to achieve your compliance percentage. So it's just a definition of asset, threat, and vulnerability. So I can share you the slide. You can go through it. So asset is just an equipment. Whatever you have in your organization, you have a laptop, that's also an asset. If you have a hard drive or a pen drive where you keep the data or you exchange, that is also an asset. So if you have keep certain policies and procedures, that's also an asset. So whatever which help you to sustain your business is called asset. Threat is nothing but it can be a person or a circumstance or an event that can potentially cause a damage to your organization asset. That's what your threat is. So the exploitability factor of a vulnerability is actually a threat. Similarly, vulnerability is just a design flaw. Uh, you're coming with a product, and for example, you might have seen a lot of like references with respect to vulnerabilities. You have your home and your lock is there, and the lock is like you're keeping um, the lock. I mean, you're keeping a digital lock, and you're setting. If you have a digital lock with your home and you have a password as 000, and if you're keeping that as a, because it is easily accessible, anyone who comes and tries 000, and that's unlockable. I mean, you can easily access. So that's a design flaw, because you have kept a default password, whatever the manufacturer set for that lock. So you didn't do your part. So that's a vulnerability exists, and you didn't do your part. So that is any design, anything comes with a design flaw, we call as vulnerability. If it is an implementation, if it is an administration, uh, So that can be easily exploited. So that is what vulnerability says. So yeah. So I have said about the asset prioritization previously also. It's more inclined to a digital or digital infrastructure of a multinational companies or any IT companies or even FMCGs also. They have a lot of network devices, operating system applications. So identify everything. Whatever if you have in an organization, you should be able to identify what is there, and you should have a track of it. So the next thing is again the asset prioritization can be done using your own discovery method. So I am in a vulnerability management team, but I am finding it very difficult to communicate to the asset team and to the management, the operation teams to identify. So I leveraged an application. I got a vendor, a vulnerability management vendor. So I would take a reference of Qualys. Qualys is a huge and big vulnerability management vendor where they provide you the scanning services. They help you with a lot of technological assistance with the scanners, with the cloud-based solutions, etc. So right now I have not put Qualys in the vulnerability management tools because the Qualys is a bit expensive too. And also I cannot display or cannot show you the ID and IDs and the data which is residing in Qualys specific to my organization, because we have certain policies that it could lead to a sensitive exposure of internal data. So I cannot keep that data, but I have just kept something which is very common. That's like the open source and other tools. I'll show you that towards the end of the session. So yeah, what I was saying is about the network-based discovery. So the Qualys is giving you with a tool like a scanner or a virtual appliances, and that will help you to do a discovery scan. You can put the scanner in your network premises. It can be inside or external. Qualys itself have their network, so they can reach your external perimeters. But for internal, you can just buy one of their scanners. You can deploy the scanner inside that network, and you can start doing the scans. First, you can do a discovery to identify the assets. So that is one of the method of asset prioritization. Then there are agent-based discovery. You might be knowing about different agents. I would simply say that every some agent which you already knows the antivirus softwares like McAfee, Symantec, etc., which is already there, and you know that why it is important for you. That because it will help you to update with the virus signatures, and if you happen to stumble upon on any of the viruses or the malicious files, it will just give you an alert that you have stumbled upon this and you need to remove this and to make it quarantine your system and make it safe. So that is one of the agent which you are very popular with. Similarly, vulnerability management solutions have a lot of agents where you can deploy in your laptops, in your servers, in your network devices, and to get a complete different level of your system files and vulnerabilities. So that says about it. And then the frequency is very important. So you say, okay, this is the start of year, so I'll do the vulnerability management assessment. And yeah, we have done it. And for the rest of the year, I'm not going to do it. That is the most important threat that you're going to do for your organization. It should be continuous and daily. It's not daily. I won't personally recommend daily. At least by um, like monthly or bi-weekly. Monthly, you should do that scan just to analyze, because every month, if you actively go through the different vulnerability feeds like USCERT, that is US Certified Emergency Response Team. There are JPCERTs there, Japan's is there, even India has their Certified Emergency Response Team. So if you go and visit their websites, there will be a lot of active vulnerabilities releasing every day for each and every IT component, software components, which is available in the market. So you can even visit the respective the vendors like Cisco, Microsoft, Oracle. If you go to the respective security advisory page, they will have something which is released over a couple of months back or a couple of weeks back too, where their specific module is being identified as vulnerable, and they will ask you to upgrade. One such instance is Log4j, which is Java based. Log4j is one of the logging module. So if you are happen to write the code, you might be knowing that how important a logging system works. So it helps you to troubleshoot and debug your code, which helps in the performance improvement. So similarly, one such module is Log4j, which has the exploitability factor leading to compromising the whole system. So that is eventually identified, and the users, the Java has the respective module maker has asked their stakeholders to fix by removing or just upgrading to the latest version, which is vulnerability free one. So such things which is keep coming on every week, or I would say every day. I know last year was due to this COVID, the most of the business going online, and similarly the threats and the vulnerabilities and the attack pattern also got changed over last year, and we saw a lot of more vulnerabilities being published every week and more attacks and all. So it's very important to check on the frequencies of doing this vulnerability assessment. So correlating the threats, which I have already discussed, one simple funda or simple idea was that just identify the vulnerability which pose more uh, impact, like as I said about Log4j or WannaCry vulnerability. And if your system is exposed to public, like if I can just access your system, then that is means if I can reach you through the IP address and I can see your operating system and that particular system is having a WannaCry vulnerability, then that's where the real threat is. That needs to be fixed. So always do a correlation, and threats like worms, exploitable wide scale attacks, these needs to be continuously monitored. Okay, so these need to be continuously monitored, and so based on that, you should identify the threats and fix it. So it's the result should be the prioritization of vulnerabilities within your environment. Prioritize it and apply the remediation. So risk calculation is nothing but a union of vulnerabilities, assets, and threats. So based upon the criticality of the value, the risk value, you should focus on your true risk and get it remediated. So remediation, perfection, as I said, is unrealistic. You know that there is thousands of credit card frauds happening. Yeah, we still use it, but we should be cautious about what should be done. That's very important. So risk union will show you the right assets, relevant threats, critical vulnerabilities, everything. So that based on that, you can just go ahead and fix the vulnerabilities. Patch or mitigate is nothing but applying the patches. You might have heard about a lot of patches. If you have been using your Windows laptop, if you're using Windows 11 or 10, you might have ended up, there are so many instances like your laptop is taking too much of time in updation. It's not just a feature updation. There could be a lot of security rollups, which is Microsoft issuing to your end laptop just to protect your system. So there you might have heard like, okay, you have a laptop and you don't have to, if you're using a cracked version of Microsoft, it's better that you use your antivirus, because cracked versions for cracked versions Microsoft will never issue the patches or security rollup. So it's always advised to get the full version or the complete version from the vendor, because that's how the security is agreed between you and the vendor, that your system is protected all the time. And if it's some compromises happen, you can question back your vendor that this has happened and you didn't do anything. So that is very important. So to update your patching, mitigating, everything is very important for any assets. Even if you have a mobile phone, you should be adhering to the policies and keep updating your system to stay away from the attacks. So it's just the measuring part. So as I said, even though you're fixing, okay, you're going remediation, doing all these fixes, that doesn't make any sense, because you should stop somewhere and you should see, okay, how far I have done the remediation. So I just did it just for, I mean, just applying a patches over non-relevant asset doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't go, it is not going to reduce your risk value. So always keep a keep a quote on the real risk of your organization, an asset, and identify it, and keep putting efforts to reduce the risk and the total risk of your organization. Plus, and also keep an eye on the policy compliance value. The percentage should never go lesser. It should be always above the minimum threshold. So these are the main 10 steps for an effective vulnerability management. Identify all assets in your purview. It's very important to know your assets. Create an asset criticality profile. That's as I mentioned previously. If you have an asset, if in a server which is hosted in the public profile, public network, that should have a very high value. And if a server or if a desktop which is sitting inside your network and which doesn't have any sort of network interaction, then you can just reduce the asset value, the criticality value for that one. So the same vulnerability is being tagged on both the assets, then you should prioritize something which is sitting on the public network. Determine the exposures and vulnerabilities, track relevant threats realized and unrealized. So always have a look on the relevant threats. Keep an eye on the public feeds about the new vulnerabilities. Determine risk, which is a union of vulnerabilities, assets, and threats. Take corrective action if the risk is greater than cost to eliminate or mitigate. So that 6 point is very critical, but I would say that it will be always greater than cost to eliminate or mitigate. Because if a compromise has happened, for example, if a ransomware attack happened, since you are not applying a patch which doesn't cost anything to you, more maybe less than like 100, but you end up giving thousands of dollars to the attacker to recover your assets from ransomware. So that's where the point comes in. There have been many instances where different organization has challenged themselves because they don't have enough budget to feed the security team, but they end up giving a lot of money, a lot of dollars to the attackers to recover back their data. So that is very important. Take corrective action if the risk is greater than cost to eliminate or mitigate. Create meaningful metrics and hold people accountable. So creating a metrics is very much important. So if you're tracking the vulnerability, the trend is very much important. So you have fixed 100 vulnerabilities over last month, and which has been increased to 200 vulnerabilities over next month. So that should be going on increasing. So your effort should be going on increasing, and it's like make people accountable for it. So if a team is there for Java vulnerabilities or Java management, so there should be a Java security team who should held responsible for any vulnerabilities released by Java or any threats or active threats which is available in the market or in the public. That should be the team should be made accountable for that. Then the eighth point is identify and address compliance gaps. As I said, if you find any compliance gaps, it's the team responsible to eliminate those gaps, and there shouldn't be any sort of silos, and make the team healthy. Implement an automated vulnerability management system. So as I said, there will be a lot of assets. You cannot manually do one by one IP scan or asset scan, taking one application. So that's where the automated vulnerability management comes into picture, which Qualys, Nexpose, and Nessus, which is Tenable. These three giant vendors are already there in the market. Most of the organization rely. So if you connect with them, these vendors, they will help you with a lot of resources and solution to get these things addressed, and you will have a successful vulnerability management program implemented for your organization. So this is the general summary. All assets are not treated equally. You cannot respond or even protect against all threats. That's something a rule. You cannot simply like, okay, I'm going to fix 100 vulnerabilities today. No, it's not possible, because there may be certain dependencies also for the certain application. Certain modules, even they are vulnerable, they will be still running for your customer business. So you cannot suddenly end up completely making the business unavailable. So that's not literally possible, but you should think about something like defense in depth. So that's a session. Defense in depth is something different. that is a separate session we have to be organized to have a defense in depth. So maybe in future you will get a lot of sessions, industry connect sessions for defense in depth and zero trust policies. So that's some completely a different thing. Okay. So an effective vulnerability management program focuses on risk, vulnerabilities, assets, and threats. So there is only three things that you have to concentrate: vulnerabilities, assets, and threats. So strategically manage vulnerability using a comprehensive process. So for everything, there should be a process. So similarly, vulnerability management should also have a process to make it run effectively. Okay. So I believe this is the general um, overview of the whole vulnerability management. So do you have any questions in between you have to ask me till the session which I have taken? So maybe I'll give you a break. You can have any questions. Okay. Can I go to the next one? If you have any questions, you can just put it on the chat also so that I can reply.
Sir, after your session, we'll have a question and like a feedback session. So our students will ask their questions after your session.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So just give me 1 minute. I just have to set my system for the further session. Just give me a minute.
Fine, sir. Fine. Take your time.
Okay, so now we can go to the VM tools and products as I have mentioned earlier. So we have a lot of products available. So it the first thing which I'm going to talk to you about is Nmap. Nmap, I guess you might be quite aware as you are already into cybersecurity area. Nmap is already a fundamental tool which will help you to identify the ports and services and also the vulnerable services too. So you might have been already used to it or might have used it, but I can just show you a couple of instances from the Parrot operating system. Parrot operating system is one of the operating system which we use for attack purposes or the vulnerability assessment purposes too. So it has a lot of other tools which helps in forensics to do red teaming activities, to do the web application assessment, etc. So if you just like Kali Linux or Backtrack Linux, Parrot operating system, Parrot OS is also very helpful. And why I used Parrot here is because what you're seeing right in front of your screen is what is called OpenVAS, which is provided by Greenboard Security Assessment. So Parrot has inbuilt Greenboard security assessment, that is open solution, which will help you or facilitate with small scale vulnerability assessment. which gives you the dashboard, and which will gives you the results, and which is quite easy to perform a scan from open solution. So before that, let me show you how the nmap looks. You can just come over here in this particular operating system, and in parrot there are a lot of other stuffs also, from information gathering, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis, database assessment, a lot of modules which is already available in market, or else be already available, made available. Different security enthusiasts made a compromise module in parrot, so you can just go here and you can make use of it. So let me go to the vulnerability analysis part, that is for the today session. So here you will see there are Cisco based tools are there, fuzzing tools are there, OpenVice is what which is available in Parrot. If you look at Kali Linux, OpenVice is not there. So that's why a Parrot is one of the recommended Linux distro specifically for security assessment and red team activities. Okay. So let me show you how does nmap looks, as I suggested. So if you just go to this the terminal, so you have to take a terminal. So opening the terminal, you just put nmap. You will have an option. Sorry, and it will give you a lot of help switches which will help you to identify to do it yourself. You just do a help and just type nmap. You will have a lot of options to perform scan. For example, nmap, I'm just putting minus sv, and I'm just doing it on sv is to look up on the versions and the ports and services which is open on my local machine, and to identify the respective version of softwares, or like any of the services are running, it will help you to bring up those information also. So let me do that. Yeah. So this is for specific to my machine. And if you see there, what all our informations are showing is like port, state, service, and version. So which port is open and what is the state of that particular port, and also the service which is running on there, and what is the version. Of course, this particular software, this particular operating system has the OpenVerse installed, so you will be able to see this one. Similarly, you will see if it is 445 is open, you will be able to see the 445 and SMB port is open, MSDRC, this Microsoft service which is running, and be able to see the version also. This is why, and this is how Nmap helps you to get the information of the end systems, which is an initial trigger for doing further activities, further exploit activities. So when you look upon hacking or ethical hacking, the first prerequisite or the first thing is information gathering. So without knowing what is the system, what is the software, what is the operating system, what ports are running open on the system, you cannot do anything. So that's the first part. You need certain list of tools. So one such tool is what? Nmap. So the whole vulnerability management is revolving around vulnerability assessment alone. So vulnerability assessment is just a precursor to the actual penetration testing part. Penetration testing is what we officially call for the attacking part or the exploiting part. So vulnerability management is a defensive approach to identify the vulnerabilities of the organization, hence to apply the mitigation and remediation. So one important thing is vulnerability management is a defensive team, which is a part of tools and tactics in blue team activity. It is not associated with red team activity. So let me tell you about what is red team and blue team. So red team is nothing but a team who does the active penetration testing and attack on organization to see whether the vulnerability is really there or not. So blue team is the defensive team who does the monitoring part. If someone is trying to do a reconnaissance on your system, like who's trying to eavesdrop or trying to make any sort of malicious attempt on your system, so that is overlooked by the blue team. So So the vulnerability team always falls under blue team area. So it's actually in between. So it's more like tools and tactics process. So we use Qualys, or basically Qualys is the giant vendor for vulnerability management. Okay, so this is all about Nmap. So you can go through this and you will get all these informations, and you can do test, you can do your own test, but make sure that you should never attempt on any of the public platforms without an approval. So it will have a legal implication. I have kept a disclaimer. So while taking these classes, or if you go to any ethical hacking, the term ethical hacking itself is should be done with whatever security testing which happened on any organization is like pre-informed. It should have the right amount of consent from the written consent from the organization to do so. So if you are doing something without any knowledge, or trying to do if you're trying to act as a bad actor, then it has legal implications. So to please keep that in your mind. So Nessus is also another product which is just like Qualys. I will show you the interface of the Nessus. Nessus is owned by Tenable, which provides the vulnerability assessment solution as a service. It's completely SaaS model, so software as a service, and it has an open source network vulnerability scanner that uses common vulnerabilities and exposure architecture for easy cross-linking between compliant security tools. So there are a lot of inbuilt security signatures which Nessus themselves have developed. Not only that, they have leveraged it from the public, that to use certain modules to identify that certain critical vulnerabilities. This is one of the many vulnerability scanners used during vulnerability assessment, penetration testing engagements, including malicious attacks. This is a tool that check computers to find the vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit. So they will do an extensive test. They would do a certain dictionary attack and all, but it's like pre-informed. Like you need to have a consent before doing that. I'll show you how does the Nessus looks. Even Nessus has different versions. One is called Essentials. Nessus Professionals also there. Then also Tenable.io is there, which is a cloud version, which all comes in the enterprise versions. So just for your home purpose, you can install. You can just go to the Nessus, the Tenable. Uh, so this is the Tenable website. You can just go there. You will have a lot of resources available under Tenable. So you can use Tenable Nessus Essentials, which you can install in your laptop and do the scanning exercises. So I'm just using this. This is locally hosted one. Okay, so this is how the interface looks, and you can go. It's nothing is there. So I just have installed yesterday. So nothing is there. If you want, I can just show you just one scan. So if you come to the scanner part, you have a different options. So if you see the upgrade, that is something like you have to purchase it. You have to go for Nessus Professional. So there's a malware scan, advanced scan. We always go for basic network scan. So you have to keep in mind, if you are using Nessus Essentials, it will allow only the private network range. That means if you have a virtual box or a virtual machine hosted within your operating system, that is allowed. But if you're trying to put any public website, they will give you, they will warn you, and you will not be able to do scan within Nessus Essentials as well. So let me go to a basic network scan. So here the host discovery is there. Host discovery is nothing but just to identify whether the host is up or not with a certain list of ports and services. So I'll directly go to the net vulnerabilities part. So I'll take the basic network scan. I have a website which is there, I mean, an operating system hosted on my machine, so which is Ubuntu. So let me get you the IP of that. So I should use an IP address to perform the scan. So if you look at here, I have, and see, if you look at here, this is a class C IP range, uh, which is a private range. So I can give it to this machine because the Nessus clearly knows that this hosted Nessus application also shares the same series of IP range, and it's also reachable. Of course, it has to be reachable, otherwise the scan will not go. So I'm just put basic. Can, can put it based on your need. You can put whatever description you want. So the folder, I'm just putting this one and targets, and I'm just launching it. So it's just happening. So this is how we just do a basic scan. I'll show you post scan. How does it look? um, how does the result look? So meanwhile, let the scan runs. Let me take you to the Pareto OS. Here I have told you that we have another tool also, which is an open source tool. You don't have to buy, or you don't have to spend anything, or you don't have to even register anywhere to get this OpenVAS security scanner. So the last one which I was putting over here is for the OpenVAS. OpenVAS is a full-featured vulnerability scanner. It is capable to include authenticated. You can, so okay, what is authenticated and authenticated? Authenticated is nothing but okay. So the question is like, can we use Nessus on? See, Nessus also you shouldn't use any software, because you are not part of any organization who has an association with government to perform these scans. So if you're part of a bug bounty program, then it's something like it is authorized and you can do it. But I don't recommend, because don't use any Nessus or any sort of tool from your personal laptop on any of the government websites or any of the public domains. So it is highly illegal. So if you are part of an organization and works for the government, and if you have a prior consent from the governmental websites or the organization, then you can go and do it. But it's all like from the authorized. Sorry, I don't have that information with me right now. Maybe I can check and drop you an email. But I believe Nessus Essentials can be used, but I'm not sure. But mostly you can use the other tools for whatever open source for bug bounty program. But I need to check. I'm not sure about. I'm not 100% sure whether Nessus is allowed or not. I'll check and I'll drop you a mail. Is that fine? Okay. So so basically, Nessus is Nessus tenables. There are different products, and which is for wide scale or for a huge organization. You have to do, like, you have a 10,000s of web assets, like Linux machines, Windows machines, and you have like 1,000 plus websites. Then there comes the picture. There we have to use Qualys or Nessus. Uh, that's how they support, because if you think you're doing for one or two machines, or you're doing for one of the websites as a hobby, as a bug bounty program, that's possible to use all these open source tools because you just have enough time. But like 10,000 assets, putting a script or developing a Python script is also not practical. That's why we rely on the big vendors for performing scans and getting the reports done to publish it to the different stakeholders. Okay, so that's about, and let me show you this also. So I have previously, so if you want to initiate a scan on this OpenVAS, so you have to go here. There's an option called Wizard, and after opening this, you have to go to the Wizard, and there's a task Wizard. Yeah, so you can put the IP address over here, and you can click scan, start scan, which I have already done. And if you look at here, So the results looks like something like this, and you will be able to, unfortunately, it doesn't have many of other vulnerabilities, so it doesn't bring much of the data. So in case if you have some results, so you will be having the information like what vulnerabilities and all this information you will be able to see. Okay. So this is about OpenVAS. So you can still play around OpenVAS in Paratois. If you're installing Paratois, then you can do, you can attempt, I mean, you can try all these things. So to, as I said earlier, you can go to the application. I'm sorry, something happened. My machine got hanged. Just give me. Okay, it seems it crashed. Okay, so let's see the Nessus one. Yeah. So the Nessus one, the scan got completed. Um, okay, there was some issue with the configurations. So it didn't give me the complete result. So basically, this is how you launch a scan. So if I get a different session, I will give you a complete idea of how we can execute more on Nessus scans or even Qualys also. So I'm just trying to get some of the resources on Qualys part. So this is all from my end for today's session. So any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for such a thought-provoking session. I'm sure everyone present here really valued the knowledge you shared and are the most appreciative of this session. So now proceeding further, well, the session is open for the questions and discussions. So if any student or anyone has any question can ask. And even you can type your questions in chat box. I hope, sir, you have already clarified everything in such a detailed way that there is no questions at all. So, on this note, we have entered the final moments of our session where I feel privileged to propose a vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank our Department of CSE, AI and ML, and Cybersecurity and Futurist Technologies to conduct a wonderful event of Industry Connect, where our students with faculty members are fortunate to connect with eminent industry experts of various domains. On behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Jain, deemed to be university, and all the students, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Nirmal Kumar to accept our invitation and for refurbishing our students with the best possible and upgraded education. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to our beloved HOD, Dr. V. Vivek, for his constant support and motivation. I sincerely thank our team of very motivated and hardworking faculty members to join this session. And finally, I would like to thank our students for paying their valuable attention. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for joining the session. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day ahead.
You too, sir. Thank you.